Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in the last video we showed you all about shapes. In this video we're going to be taking that sort of approach but for images. Now images are something that you can work with really nicely in Figma. Not all vector design applications handle images the same way or even in nice elegant ways, but Figma offers a lot of really cool things that some other applications don't, like actually being able to adjust things like brightness and contrast and actually slightly manipulating your images. So let's get started with that right now. Okay, so in this video, we're going to be working with images. Now, images in Figma are done really well. There's only one complaint I have, and that's that you can't at this moment, like at this very moment, drag an image from your browser into Figma. Now, I don't know if that's going to change. I would hope it would. It's not something you do all the time, but it is something you occasionally do. What is here though, however, is you can drag an image into your canvas from the desktop. So let me shoot everything away here, and let's go ahead and grab an image. I just have some stuff sitting on my desktop, need to clean it off, and you can see, let's go ahead and just drop this right on our canvas. And as you can see, here it is. It shows up in its full size and all of its glory. It's even in our layers over here. Now at first glance, this looks like it's just an image, right? It looks like you've just placed an image. But if you look a little bit closer, you're going to see something kind of interesting here. We're not working with an image. We're working with a shape with an image as a fill, which is an important distinction to make because we have access to the shape as it would if this was a normal shape. Let's actually zoom out a little bit here. Let me zoom out and move this over so we actually have this in its own space. And maybe let's make this a whole bunch smaller because, yeah, it's kind of huge. So let's go ahead and hold Shift to make this way smaller. And here we have our image. You'll notice that the fill of the background was contained within that shape. You'll also notice here that if we adjust things like the border radius, it cuts and masks off the background itself. And that's because, like I said, this is a fill, this is a background set on a shape. The same way if you were to take a shape that already exists and say, hey, that fill should be an image. So actually, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a square. I'm going to hit R. I'm going to click and drag and make a square here. I'm now going to come to my fill and I'm going to hit the minus button. This deletes the fill that's currently there. Let's hit the plus button and you'll see it brings it back. Now we didn't have to delete it because it doesn't give you an option of what type of fill on your deletion and addition. You can have multiple fills, by the way, and change their blending modes. However, we're not doing that at this very moment. What we actually want to do to change this fill is to click this square. Right now it's just the color C4, C4, C4. And you'll notice we have our basic color properties. There's some really cool stuff going on with colors here we're not going to talk about right now, but we will talk about a little bit more when we talk about team stuff or creating your own personal color library. So what we want to do here is click where it says solid in the top left, and you'll notice we have some options of linear, radial, angular, diamond, image. Now all of these are gradients except for image, or solid obviously. So let's go ahead and click image, and you can see by default it gives us this image. What's cool about this is also by default the image is set to fill. We also have options to fit and crop and tile. Now you won't notice a difference in a ton of these right now with this very symmetrical image, except for with tile, which you can see it's set to 50%. If we were to increase this percentage size, it's going to get a lot bigger. Now, this is something I love about Figma. Many times when you're working with tiling in images, it's not super obvious exactly what the sizes and percentages are that require this to be 100% or even anything here. We can see that very clearly the bounding layer, the bounding outline of the original image that we're working with is right here. And so because of that, we can see, hey, this shape is growing at this size, and this is the original here. It's also important to know that when I click away from this tile, that dark background rectangle with the blue arrows, it's going to go away. So don't worry too much about that. Now, of course, this checkered pattern is just the base image that it provides you. Now, it doesn't give you any additional images to work with, and that doesn't bum me out. I mean, Photoshop, Illustrator, Sketch, they all give you base images to work with in a lot of situations, and how many times do you actually use those? I personally don't use them. I usually maybe download some simple patterns from simplepatterns.net or something. Let's go ahead and click Choose Image. And I'm going to set this again as, I'll just pick a different image to differentiate it. And you'll notice, because our tile was set to tile at 217%, this thing is huge. So let's bring this way down, okay? And as you can see, it's tiling. It looks super ugly, but it's tiling, right? We can also change this to fill, in which it sets the largest property. So for instance, if this is a square and we have a rectangle image here that's wide, then the height is going to fill, and then the rest is going to be centered. What's cool about this is if we grow this shape, you'll notice it remains centered and reveals more and more of the image while in fact containing the height. If we were to do this the opposite way, where this is long and skinny, you'll notice that it does this the exact opposite way. It's just super nice, right? This is just doing a lot for you here. In addition, we can do fit, where no matter what, it fits inside of the square. You'll notice that we now have transparency in this square, so it does the exact same thing except for without cropping. Now we have crop, which allows you to actually have some crop tools where it's basically acting like a little bit more of a visual crop tool, right? You can see if we were to do this, it's actually, it will be showing this image right now, but when we click off, it's only going to show what's inside of the crop. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to fill. I like fill the most. And let's click off of this. Now, in addition, we can also, again, change the border radius or any of that stuff. We can add a stroke to this, just like we would any sort of other shape, right? There's a big old stroke on here. Obviously, this is getting kind of ugly. And we could do things like add a drop shadow or any of that stuff. But let's say we wanted to manipulate this image. Well, we can add blending modes on this layer with another fill. Let me go ahead and delete this stroke because it's ugly. And we can add a plus. And you can see it automatically for our second fill, it decided to add a linear gradient. Now this is kind of useful because we can take this linear gradient, and if we select this, what looks like a water droplet here, we can change the blending mode. Obviously multiply is not the right option here, but we can say something like overlay, and you can see we're now getting a much different effect here, where the white is actually adding to the color. And for a non-image manipulation application, I mean, this thing isn't Photoshop. These are great tools that, you're occasionally going to want to work with images and manipulate them. Add filters and blending modes. I mean, CSS has blending modes right now, so why shouldn't a vector application have really nice tools for adding gradient overlays and stuff like that on top of your images? Okay, so check it out. We have now added to images in two separate ways. We've created our shape first, and we added it as a fill. We dragged an image to our canvas and saw how it was the exact same thing as the other way. It just saved us some steps of having to create that shape of the same size. Now lastly, let's go ahead and check out this last one. This is going to be place image, which we didn't cover in the last video, but you may have seen, and I believe I briefly mentioned it. Let's go ahead and create a shape first. Actually, better yet, let's create a more interesting shape. I'm going to create a polygon. It's going to be a hexagon, because there was a little while when hexagons were like all over every website ever. Just because people could do clip masks in CSS now, they just wanted to start using hexagons and fun shapes, which is cool. And what I want to do here is I want to actually drop in a photo. I'm going to use a photo of myself because I have one on my desktop, and typically you saw this kind of thing in that manner. Also, it beats sort of these thumbnails that don't really fit here. And what I want to do is I want to come into my shape tools again. I'm going to click place image. Now, place image is really the same thing as dropping an image onto your canvas, except it gives you an interesting little tool here, which we're going to be covering right now. I'm going to select this photo as a screenshot for one of my videos, and you can see I can just drop this anywhere I want. Now, I could click place all, which would actually place as many images as I selected, or I could click and drag to place, or I could just simply click. and it drops it in here just like it would if I were to drag and drop this from my desktop. Let's undo this, and let's go ahead and once more and click the place tool, or place image, and let's select that image again. And this time I'm going to show you what's one of my favorite features with images. I have already created my shape here, and I can hover over the crosshair over the shape, and you can see this image of me mid-speech with teeth out kind of thing is now inside of this shape. And you might be thinking, well, it added a fill which was already the shape's fill. Not a big deal. If we click the white space next to the square for the C4, we can hit the minus key and delete it. In addition, we can click our image here and we have our image tools. Now I'm going to change this. Instead of fill, I'm going to select crop. Now you might be wondering why. Well, we actually get this access to pan around now. So we can place this anywhere we'd like. You'll notice though, if I get down too far, it's actually ruining the shape of our pentagon here. And I can move it over here. It puts me in the center a little bit. Definitely wish I would have chosen a better photo. No big deal. As you can see here, I'm going to, now that this is centered inside of the shape, click off of it, or at least close this dialog. And you can now see I have my image here directly into this shape. So as you can see here, working with images in Figma is pretty darn awesome. We have several ways of getting our image into Figma. We can place it with the place image tool. We can drop it in. We can drag and drop it in, and we can set it as a background of a shape. The important thing to note here is that all of these are essentially shape masked images. And this is really cool. If you were doing a web design here and let's say you wanted a billboard, you'd essentially, maybe let's say this is your header. Let's do another rectangle. I'm going to have some overlap here, and this is your background image. Let's change this to, I have some working Level Up Tuts colors. Okay, so this is the Level Up Tuts header here, and this is the billboard background. We can now take this shape and we can add an image in here and really truly make this a billboard. Let's go ahead and grab an image. I'm going to show you basically something that the Level Up Tuts site is doing, which I actually designed in Figma here. So if we do place image, I'm going to head to my sites directory where the Level Up Tuts sites exist. I'm going to grab the exact image I'm using here. This was created and designed in Figma. Let's go to public and let's grab and let's find my image here. Not the one I'm looking for. Here we go, background.png. And we can essentially click to place this anywhere. I'm going to place this right here. You'll see this on the pro page. This is a tiling image. I made this to tile. So if we select our image here, select tile, you can see we now have this tiling image. Let's bump up the size a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to delete the fill layer, the extra C4 one for good measure. Don't need it anymore. And as you can see here, we have this tiling now background image, and I can really see what this thing's gonna look like in the site design. Now I'd also probably throw inner shadow on this, a box shadow on our header, and obviously you would see a little bit more. But now that we have this set as a tiling fill, you can adjust this as you see fit. And you'll see one of the reasons why Figma is so powerful once we get into components and constraints. And this kind of technique is going to come in very handy. So as you can see, working with images in Figma is really super easy. They give you a lot of tools and really just, take away some of the guesswork as to how this functions, because it functions the same way vectors do. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment on this video or hit me up at Level Up Tutorials. I'm at Level Up Tuts on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. The best way to get in contact with me is head into the Level Up Tutorial Slack room, where I'm pretty much always hanging out. So sign up. It's at the footer of the Level Up Tuts site. You can see a link to the Slack channel there. You can just sign up yourself. No need to be invited. All good. And if you want to purchase this series, head to store.leveluptutorials.com, and you can purchase this series, get all of the videos, and become a Figma master. You'll even get access to the Figma files that we create at the end of each episode. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.